Hello, folks. Better late than never. And we're not that late, I don't guess. So there's usually a 5 minute, what do you call it, a grace period, I guess. So I
Yeah.
am here with my compadre Shari Dunn. How you doing, Shari? How was
Uh,
did you have a good Juneteenth weekend?
I did. I had a very busy, very lovely Juneteenth weekend. It's funny. I posted that video of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which has one of the longest running, continuously running Juneteenth celebrations in the United States. And people are always surprised about that. But outside of Texas and I think Los Angeles, Milwaukee has the longest. And
Really?
outside of Texas, and I think Los Angeles has a slightly longer one. But yeah, and people, I mean, you're dealing with people who came from the South, people who came from
Oh yeah.
Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas. And so they brought those traditions with them to the North. And then there was a young lady who started, I forget her name, it's escaping me, but I was 3 years old when it started. So basically,
Wow.
in all of my conscious memory, there's been a Juneteenth celebration in Milwaukee. So I did not know that people did not know about Juneteenth until I was an adult and left Milwaukee. And then, of course, after the murder of George Floyd, people started talking about it. And then I was interested in the fact that it seems a lot of people on the East Coast didn't celebrate it as much. And I was
Hmm.
surprised by that. Texas, I mean, California makes sense because a lot, like when you look at migration patterns, a
Right.
lot of Black folks from Texas and Louisiana went to California. Whereas in the Midwest, you see a lot of Mississippi, Arkansas, and Alabama. And on the East Coast, you tend to see you do see a mixture, but the East Coast tends to be heavy Carolinas, I notice.
Hmm.
So North Carolina, South Carolina, when you look, because people don't have a lot of money. They're going the way the train goes as fast as they can get out of the South at that time. The migration as close as they could
Yep.
get, right? So living on the East Coast was always very interesting because everything was so coastal based. So that kind of Carolina flavor dominated to me.
Hmm.
And being in California is that Texas, Louisiana, and in the Midwest is that Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas. And so I've lived in all these places, so I've gotten to see the different, you know, Black culture that comes from those different regions, right? So, so
Hmm.
anyway, it makes sense.
That's
California
interesting
was
because
a big
I will
place
tell you, growing up, I don't remember hearing anything about Juneteenth, which is weird.
because y'all at the
Given
I got Texarkana
I'm
over there.
right there, yeah, I'm right there in Arkansas. I don't think I heard or just sort of mentally appreciated Juneteenth until I mean I was an adult when I first really
Yeah,
kind of
that's
heard. I mean, it wasn't like a family. Now, did we go celebrate and do stuff and picnics and all that? But not specifically Juneteenth. I just don't remember knowing about it, which is kind of
uh-huh.
weird.
Yeah, it's weird. And I think people are always surprised that in the oh, hold on. I'm trying to figure out something. I'm trying to get to our live chat on
Ah,
Substack. So I like to see comments in real time, and I don't like when I can't see what people are saying. But so that's another thing with StreamYard. I can't be moving between places to interact with people. Like I
all
like
you
to
got to do is just, like one summer, do like an apprenticeship, like on a
you know
trading desk,
I
and you'll
don't
be so used to like
yeah, I don't
multiple
like that. I
screens.
like to be where my people are so I can see them in real time and not, lose connection with them. But yeah, it's funny because I, well, in particular, we had a Black younger I should look up her name, but she was at the time in the late 60s, a younger Black woman who, and this tells you how. So we think about George Floyd, right? And the
Hmm.
impact his death had, his murder had, and the impact his murder had in people renewing. Well, it was the same thing in the 60s, right? You had these young idealist Black people, and she likely heard about Juneteenth, brought it to Milwaukee. Think of it like, after George Floyd. And this became something that we stuck with, though, for over 56 years now. That has always been there. But it was that motivating factor, probably, of the 60s, that kind of re-enlightenment and reconnection, just like we had after the murder of George Floyd. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't
Mhm.
like Milwaukee's been celebrating since 18 something, it was that 60s consciousness that brought it to Milwaukee, I think.
You made an interesting comment a minute ago, just talking about the migration
Hmm.
patterns. And, there's a really good book that I read some years ago, The Warmth of
Of
Other
other
Suns.
sons. Yep.
And I mean, that's what it's about, is
Hmm.
how people were trying to get the hell out of the deep South. And, there were like different sort of parts to the story where they focused on the folks that went, that ended up in Michigan, Detroit and so forth,
Hmm.
which
Yeah.
I have a lot of relatives that, Grand Rapids and Lansing and so on. And then there's another part of it that talks about all the folks that went to California. And
California, East Coast. Yep.
the interesting thing was that while Black people were certainly migrating, um, and I think I read this elsewhere, where LA especially was recruiting police from the deep South to come in and kind of handle they
Hmm.
were treating us like, I guess, in much the same way that this administration treats people coming from crossing the southern border. It's
Oh
really
yeah.
interesting.
It is, what's mostly interesting to me about it is, having lived on the East Coast, Midwest, West Coast, is the food. That was the big clue for me that something was very different, right?
Mm.
So growing up in the Midwest, like Chicago, huge Black Mecca, all kinds of Black people came, but it's heavily influenced by Mississippi and Arkansas, actually. And so barbecue uh, was the dominant, and not like Memphis, like a deep South kind of
Yeah.
thing. And so when I think of soul food and Southern food, it's fried chicken, it's barbecue, because that's what does that area, right? But when you are in California and even on the East Coast, it's more rice, seafood folded in. Not that
Mm.
Mississippi, Arkansas don't have that, but it's just not
Yeah.
dominant. And so I would go places, and then people's idea of what was soul food, I was like, oh, this is very different. These are coming from different traditions. I think
Right.
sometimes we forget that about Black people, that we have regional differences. Like, we tend to get put in one bucket. We do it and people do it, but we actually do have regional differences, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm in North Carolina, and I can tell you, as a matter of fact, I went to a Black-owned restaurant Friday on Juneteenth.
Hmm.
Um, totally not planned. I hadn't been there. This was my first visit, and the chef is a guy named Keith Rhodes, and Keith is like a local celebrity, but it's because he's like, it's almost, when I went to this restaurant, it was almost like The Bear, if you've ever seen that
Oh
television
wow.
show. Because I was with some people that they're part of a association that tries to, I guess, sort of farm to table kind of stuff,
Mhm.
hooking up the local people with restaurants, right? And I didn't realize we were going to be treated like food critics. So, I mean, in a good way. It was like every time before we even ordered, it was like, compliments to the chef. This is pickled squash. And I'm like, pickled squash? I ain't never had that. And believe me, you want some pickled squash. It's really good.
You
But
can
yeah,
pickle almost anything, and
it
if you
just
like
wasn't something I'd ever had. And
it.
it was just one thing after another. And at a certain point, I was like, are we even going to need to order any food? Because I'm starting to get full. I mean, they just kept bringing stuff, and really, they were, I think, putting on a show for us, but it worked. It was great.
That's
And,
lovely. Yeah.
but I guess the point is, what, crab cakes and things
Yeah.
like that. Now in the South, we have, you get that canned salmon and make some, croquettes is what my grandma called them.
That's what
But
I
it's
like.
essentially a similar
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, that's a pretty commonish one, I think, across, because I used to I did a summer legal internship on the south side of Chicago,
Mm.
for legal services, and a kitty corner to us was a place called Mississippi Rick's Barbecue. Let me tell you, that joint was delicious, and it was not
Mississippi Ricks, huh?
Mississippi Rick's Barbecue. South Side of Chicago, random corner store barbecue joint, and which is what I love about Chicago. Chicago has good food at every tier. You
Absolutely.
don't have to, like here in Portland, it's an event if somebody does barbecue. Like what? But there was a girl who was doing this summer legal internship with me, and why this child bring salmon cakes and eggs for breakfast? Had the whole office smelling like salmon cakes every morning, and was totally unaware of why people found the odor because she would put it in a microwave
Oh,
and
no,
microwave
no,
it,
no.
and was totally unaware why people were like, oh jeepers. And then that brings us to savory grits or sweet grits, and I am convinced that sweet grits is more commonish in the what people used to call the dirty South, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama. Not that people don't have savory, but it's more common. It seems to me savory is more common in that Louisiana, the
Mm.
Carolina kind of group, because they do that shrimp and grits more. And so it's interesting, that divide, because man, you want to get into a fight with people, savory versus,
That's
I
really
like
funny
both. I
because
like both.
I know people that like, put sugar on their grits. I'm not one of them now.
Sugar and butter
Not
from
butter for days,
sugar and butter,
gravy, onions. I
sugar
mean,
and butter. But I
obviously,
like savory. I do
it,
like savory.
yeah, yeah, it's definitely a
Yeah.
versatile meal.
Well, yeah. I tell you, the best shrimp and grits I ever had was in Charleston, I think,
Mm.
South Carolina. I never had anything so delicious in my life. Like I remember the flavors, you know what I mean? Because the grits they use this old milling technique apparently from like, the 1800s
Hmm.
and during slavery. And they mill them so fine. I mean, you're close to all that, that smoothness, and so delicious. So I go either way, but
Mm.
I do believe that sweet grits are a legitimate, justifiable Southern.
Let
Uh,
me tell you something. I was looking forward to shrimp and grits Friday and got there, and the lady said, I mean, I guess she knew that's what folks come. She said, she said, I'm just going to break it to you right now. We are out of shrimp and grits. And I was like, I hung my head. I got to tell you,
oh, that's so funny. Yeah,
but
and I feel like it's interesting because like you said, the Warmth of Other Suns did that as a book to give people that sense, but I still don't think that the broader culture, meaning white people, and also non-white ethnic people who are not from the United States, really
mhm.
appreciate the diversity of our background. And this came up. I don't know if you heard about it. I talked about it on my Friday Live. David Olu.
Oh yeah, right. I know you're talking about the Nigerian
Somebody,
guy
yeah,
that
somebody help me.
played Martin Luther King in Selma.
Yeah, you know what he said, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He messed up.
Well, it's not
But I
even that
think.
he's messed up. It's a lack of education about the diversity of who we are, and well, a lot of us don't know. So there you go. There were people in the comment section saying, "Why are people mad at him? Isn't he right?" Like, you see what I'm saying? Like that, the knowledge of the diversity of us as people,
Mhm.
how African American vernacular actually came to be, is not
Because
common
he
among
said
all
something
people.
like talking like slave talk or something like that. I'm going to
Well,
try to find it.
he said it's Nigerian slowed down by subservience.
Yeah.
Well, first of
That
all of
to
us didn't
me is
come
a
from
whole lot
Nigeria.
more than a mistake. That's like you said, that's a mindset.
It's a mindset. It's a mindset people have about us. And also, so much of our history is obscured that people, and I'm very interested in linguistics. I'm not a linguist, but I'm interested in linguistics because
Hmm.
it always occurred to me that African American vernacular was not ignorant. It was a dialect, and it's a
Right.
dialect. And the most interesting part of African American vernacular is back to regions. You find Gaelic in our language. From Irish, you find Scottish,
Thought,
you
yep,
find
definitely.
Old English, and depending on where you're from, so as we move toward Louisiana, you find French, Spanish, and even some Italian words in their language because that is the area there. And then we didn't slow down the language for subservience. All Southerners slowed down the language. So not only do we did we slow it down? So did white people.
Well, I
Everybody.
always say that that's the reason. Like, if you notice, like British people, actors, I've noticed,
Mhm,
man, they can really adapt to a Southern accent. A lot of, I mean,
mhm,
there are some people who do it better than others, but so just to be clear, this quote is actually a little bit worse than I thought. So
mhm,
it says, I'm just reading on
mhm,
it says during the interview, the actor suggested that the accent, meaning a black Southern accent, could be mimicked by taking a Nigerian accent, slowing it down, and adding a lot of slavery and a little bit of subservience.
mhm.
Okay. Well,
But
something though, when I went to school in the before times, in the
in the
dark ages, when I
right.
was in school, this was in the mid '70s, and there were quite a few Nigerians, from all over West Africa that were students there. And there were also quite a few Kenyans and Ethiopians. And a lot of those guys wouldn't have anything to do with us. They had in their worldview or whatever you want to call it. And, a lot of these guys had come to the University of Arkansas, not straight from Africa, but generally by way of the UK.
Mhm,
A lot of them had already gone to some, it wasn't quite university like we think of it, but they were very educated people, is the point.
mhm.
And the mindset seemed to be that we were lazy and violent,
Yeah, yeah. That's what they
basically.
were told. I mean, the missionaries who went over there, we didn't travel that much at that time, so they had very little direct experience with us, and we've been slandered around the world.
Mhm,
I mean, when
mhm.
this stories about Vietnam and the white soldiers telling the Vietnamese that the black soldiers, men had tails, monkey tails,
Oh,
that
listen,
they
my
were
dad was
violent.
in
Yeah,
Korea, and he at some point he was in Germany,
yeah.
and he ran into a lot of that.
Yeah, it's interesting how not only do white people it's always about justification, right? So not only do they have to justify what they did to us here by denying it was a really big deal, but then they had to go around the world and slander us to justify what they did to us to other people. So see, we're not that bad. We're really good people. They're animals. They're terrible. And to other black people. And people bought that. And the thing I realized when I was in Kenya several years ago is, I guess this might seem ignorant to Kenyans, but it hadn't occurred to me or it hadn't fully hit me until I was in Kenya. Oh, they have been colonized the entire time we were taken. So the Africa you go to today is French identifying, English identifying, worrying about, that mind trip has been playing on them for the entire 400 years we've been gone, right? So I think it's sometimes hard for us to remember that they have been
Mhm.
colonized of the mind and the body, depending on different areas of Africa. The same time we were trapped here, and so their view of us was almost all shaped by white slander and narrative of black people. It wasn't until black people started getting a little money, we started traveling, we started interacting, that those
Mhm.
relationships started to defrost a little bit. And then we had negative opinions of them. Let's be honest, African
Oh my goodness. Let me tell
blah blah blah. We said terrible things.
Yeah, yeah, no question about it. I mean, it was, I mean, calling somebody African was really a pejorative when I was in
Insult.
elementary school.
Oh
I'm
man.
serious. If
Oh,
you
I
call
know.
somebody black,
African.
black,
Black African. Oh my
you,
God.
oh my goodness, it was. I mean, yeah, you'd have to break up a fight because it was
But
just the worst thing you could say.
that's the thing about mental colonization, right?
Mm,
When you colonize the minds of people, you have so much power over them. You are puppeting them even when you're not present. And that's wild.
mm.
That is wild. And I almost want to say that yes, that has started to break down, but Black Panther helped us break down a lot, which sounds crazy, but media helps, right? And I
Yep.
think that brought us into more communication.
It was when I walked out of Black Panther the first time I saw it, wasn't in the theater. It was on television. But at the end of it, I was kind of like, Killmonger kind of had a point. I mean, he
But,
obviously went a little too far, and no shade on the Black Panther, but it was like
but you
you
still got to make
could
a studio movie.
understand where he was coming from.
Oh yeah, you still got to make a studio movie. But I mean, to me, when it comes to Sinners, I'm going with the vampires. I don't know what y'all talking about. I ain't sitting
Well,
here dying for no principle. I want vampire strength to do what I want to do and hang out in the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
no,
I'm totally doing vampire. I am
be
not.
150 years
Look,
old and
look,
still
look,
popping up in the club.
and don't have to take nothing from no one. I am doing vampire. So
Dang.
people are like,
Okay,
oh, people are like, oh,
okay.
it was this and that. I'm like, nah, it was an opportunity.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so yeah, I am more Killmonger, take the vampire opportunity. I'm more of that. But I was listening to this thing about how the government has influenced movies, and this is actually something I was going to talk about today if I had written my newsletter, but I was too tired from a weekend of partying, which is secret societies.
Mm.
So this came out with Peter Thiel and his secret list of people who he invited. There's all these secret societies, and the club in Northern California, the what's it called? The Oh God, I just had the name. Okay. Secret Club in Northern California,
So are
Redwoods.
you talking about the
The
deal where they've
Bohemian
got
Grove.
the
The
right,
Bohemian.
right, right, right.
So the
I was
Bohemian
with the
Grove
gigantic owl
owl.
and all of
Yes,
that.
yes,
That's
yes.
some scary
So
shit. I got to tell you.
so you got the Bohemian Grove, which is a real club, and you
Hmm.
got the Illuminati, which is may or may not have
Yeah, we don't
may or
know.
may not have been real.
We don't
But you
know, but we kind of do know. But
Right, right. But you definitely have the Bohemian Grove
oh
that
yeah,
exists, and then
yeah.
you have Peter Thiel. But the podcast was talking about how the government has been, obviously they do standards for but has long been involved in how certain things are depicted in movies, through making the government seem good and not bad, etc. And so obviously Black Panther couldn't say what we think the real answer is, which was Killmonger's answer, because that is too radical a notion for. And this argument was that there is some sort of interference in all these movies. Like they were talking about movies about the military, and how, if you notice, it all makes the military seem great and they haven't done anything bad, and how even when they do something bad, it's for this very noble reason, and so therefore you should accept it. And that got me thinking about these secret societies and how they used to have secret aims. But Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, who invests in this platform, Elon Musk, the first trillionaire who they allowed to ascend, they all have very public statements about, they're not that secret.
I don't have any. I mean, where's the lie? I mean,
I mean,
I mean, you think about movies like Top Gun, for example,
yes.
where it's all military stuff. It's all, and it really glamorizes all the positives and not really so much, especially the older versions. I mean, nowadays you have to at least throw in a dash of the negative, or folks ain't gonna go see the movie, right?
Mhm.
But I think you make a good point. And I have been reading lately, just kind of along these same, right on the edge of conspiracy theory
Mhm.
lines, about how it is that these tech billionaires take, um, Zuckerberg, for example, how they came to develop sort of that seed technology. And, you know, understand, think about it. I mean, he's developing a product that lives on the internet.
Mhm.
Well, who controls the internet? I mean, how do you build that, that initial app? How do you even do it without having some connection to the folks, who own the internet. I mean, just to be able to know, I
Mhm.
don't, the schematics of it all, right?
So one of the things they were talking about is the Bohemian Grove is where the atomic bomb was developed,
Hmm.
partly because, to your point, there is a cross mixture of people who have access to the thing, the military people, with the idea people, and somehow magically, when they leave there, that what you need to get to do this happens. And so, to your point, these things happen because they actually discuss
Well,
them.
they let it happen. If
Yeah,
you know,
but they provide the infrastructure.
yeah.
Elon Musk doesn't exist without the U.S. government providing infrastructure for his theft of ideas and repurposing of other people's ideas, right?
I literally, I just this morning was discussing a clip that um, on Elon Musk, and and none of it's secret, but
Hmm.
you got to start with the fact that the guy came over here on a student visa. You almost immediately said, "I ain't going to school," and
Hmm.
there are clips of his brother Kimball, I think is his name, saying, "Yeah, we were illegal immigrants," and Musk is like, "Wait, now it's kind of it's a little more technical." No, he came over here, did not follow the rules, started a company, and was allowed to do it. I mean, think about it. This guy came over, went to school for a minute, dropped out. He's not a physicist. He's not any of the. He's none of that. He's just like Trump, very good marketer,
And
very
extract
good
an
marketer. Yeah,
extractor of other people's ideas. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And
Oops, you went mute again.
I got a little too excited over here. Uh, no, but the clip talks about the fact that and people. I have talked to people. Well, he created Tesla. No, he didn't.
No,
He
people,
invested
you cannot
in
disabuse
Tesla.
people of that notion.
He invested in Tesla and then proceeded to push out the guys who had come up with the technology to begin with. Then they end up suing each other. And part of the interesting part was that he kept referring to himself as a founder,
Hmm.
which he was not, right? And at the end of their lawsuit, part of the settlement was that he be allowed to say he was a founder of Tesla. And so it's I mean, the people out here who believe that, of course they do, because he says it all the time.
Well, it's a decision. These decisions are traded in these secret places. The
Hmm.
Bohemian Grove, the Thiel meeting, the couple of other. There's several others that these decisions are made there about who will. You get to do this. The most blatant example was Twitter. There was clearly a discussion about Twitter's revolutionary potential for the masses. You had
Hmm.
Black Twitter. There's a great documentary on Hulu about Black Twitter's existence. You had the Arab uprising through Twitter. Twitter was
Yep.
becoming a problem. And there was a decision made to have Elon Musk, and maybe that was the trade off for him being the first billionaire, to take the loss on taking
You mean
Twitter.
trillionaire? I know it's hard
Trillionaire,
to say.
sorry, trillionaire. Yeah,
I had a hard time writing it in a sentence today.
it's
It
crazy.
just goes against everything you think, right?
That we should, but he was willing to throw that money at that, knowing it was a lost leader, but it was, and he said publicly his desire was to destroy what it was and make it an organizing principle for the far right and race. That's what his goal was, and that's what he's done. And so maybe part of the deal was, you do that, we'll clear the field for you to be the first trillionaire. Like there are real conversations like this at this Bohemian Grove. I mean, conversations about they were talking about how, and this is so funny because this podcast is a little old. Like I listed some older episodes. I want to say
Hmm. What
2017
what is the podcast?
conspiracy series, conspiracy
Oh,
theories
I could
on
have guessed.
Spotify. But it's an older episode, and they
Hmm.
were saying how there were these military games to figure out how to put down rebellion in the United States, how to
Hmm.
best use the military against U.S. citizens, and how to deputize different departments and agencies to do so, and how to suspend elements of the Constitution. And in this podcast, they were like, "Oh, well, what do you rate that on the conspiracy scale?" Well, I rate that a 3 or 4 or 5. Like, it's not likely to happen. Well, here I sit in 2026 listening to this podcast that's 10 years later, when ICE has murdered American citizens, where Stephen Miller is trying to figure out how to get around or invalidate the U.S. Constitution as well as the Supreme Court. Everything they talked about in that podcast that they didn't think was really happening has actually happened.
I know, how crazy.
But not
There's a podcast that I used to listen to called Stuff They Don't Want You to Know. And it's just like, I mean, it's great. And it would, everything that you can think of, Bohemian Grove, all the secret society stuff, and, and crazy stuff too, UFOs, whatever. And now we got the military just showing us video of what they say are UFOs.
Yes.
So it's like, oh, when you have that, when you go back and look, I mean, nobody had Donald Trump being president. I guarantee you that.
Yes, who's the only
well, The Simpsons.
Well, The Simpsons. So there was a thing about that too. But guess who is the only Republican U.S. president never invited to Bohemian Grove?
Do I have to?
Yeah, you say it out loud.
Barack Obama.
No, there was no Democrats. It's always been conservatives.
Oh.
So Democrats weren't invited.
Oh, in that case, I don't know.
Donald Trump. He is the only Republican president who's never been invited to speak, because he's a tattletale. They know if they bring him there, he's going to tell all the business.
You're doggone
see,
right.
It was an owl, and see, it was a man, and see, they discussed it. And I know, he'll tell everything.
Oh my goodness. He would be telling who had on what mask and
oh my God, he's such a lunatic. Even the secret society came. Yeah.
No, the key word is secret. I mean, he cannot be involved. I mean, this guy cannot keep a secret.
No,
and honestly, it's to our benefit. At least we sort of know what he's thinking. But yeah.
Well, that's actually the funny part about the secret society thing, because Peter Thiel, Stephen Miller, Elon Musk, Mark Andreessen, they said and JD Vance, they've all said this out loud. So just to go back to this conspiracy theory thing, they were talking about these old conspiracy theories that there's a ruling class who want to amass enough wealth so that they can dominate the rest of us and kill the ones they don't want, and then use the rest of us toward their, perpetuation. And at the time, again, I'm listening to a podcast from a decade ago, maybe, or so, maybe 8-9 years. And people like Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, Elon Musk said, I mean, I have had this on my newsletter, that they believe in a type of it's a kind of a type of a dictatorship, a benevolent dictatorship, because
where
of
the tech guys run everything.
Yes, because of their wealth and knowledge. That's exactly what people said didn't exist. But to your point, they say it out loud. Yeah. They actually don't hide it.
I mean, you look at the CEO of Palantir. And that guy, I'm scared to listen to what he talks so crazy. And he means it, right? There's, someone in the Substack chat just mentioned, you think about like even Microsoft, and people don't realize. I remember reading in Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, I think it was, and he was just talking about how Bill Gates had access to computers at a time when, because it was around the same time that I was thinking about, starting a company, and you literally had to type a business plan. You couldn't, I had a friend that had a computer, and that's sort of, and they used to call it like a data processing, app. I forget what it was, but it was like an early version of Word or something like that. And you had to have, the reason that I hooked up with my friend was he was like the tech guy for some local firm, and he had computer time. You used to be able, you used to have to pay. Yeah. Like you were on a long distance phone call.
I remember.
Right?
A little noise.
Yeah, and so because of who Bill Gates' family was and how they were connected to I forget what university, but he had access to be
Mhm.
able to develop and do all this stuff that neither one of us would have ever had.
It's interesting because what this goes back to something I've talked about all the time is to get white people in particular, working class, middle class, poor white people, they're so on the dope. They're dope sick. And racism is the dope. They keep wealthy people keep them doped up on racism and fear and
Hmm.
class, so that we can never have class consciousness to say what the fuck is going on here. You know what I mean? Like we can't. It's difficult because they keep them doped up. And I'm going to put in the chat because I found the quote from Peter Thiel about what he thinks about democracy. It says, he believes in the concept of benevolent dictatorship, a core tenet of his techno authoritarian political philosophy, which posits that freedom and democracy are incompatible. He argues that the messy, bureaucratic, and polarized world exists because too many people who don't have the intelligence, basically, or the ability, have a say. This is what the fuck? Like, how is that not more scary than a black person living next door to you? Like, you know what I mean? Like, but they keep people dope sick on race and gender issues that they're too high to notice. You know what I mean? Like, that's
Oh
just
yeah,
crazy talk. And that man has
yeah.
a direct line to the White House.
Well, and it's a really interesting comment, given that we've probably got the least qualified administration that we've maybe ever. I don't know.
But I think the tech bros want that because they're the ones who should be in charge. The government is just something for them to puppet. They don't
Well,
want.
and look, they got Teal's got his guy right there.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
JD Vance, right? So
exactly. JD
there's
Vance
that.
believes in all this. He's part of
Oh
this. They
yeah.
they believe we
Well, that
are
has made him very successful. I mean, he
right.
ain't worked for anybody else but Peter Thiel.
That's right. That's right. Right. And so it's just this crazy thing where how do you get the majority of Americans to agree to their own demise?
Hmm, hmm.
I mean,
I mean,
these people,
well, think
yeah.
about it. How do you get the American people to let you spy on them? Just give
Well,
every one of them a phone to put in their pocket.
everyone a
I mean,
phone.
we
All of this
literally,
was planned.
I mean, if you think about it, we have
Mhm.
willingly given up so much of our privacy.
They gave us Candy Crush so they could get access to everything we say and do.
uh, I'm laughing, but it ain't funny.
Mm.
Sometimes what's the nervous laughter,
Mhm.
because it's I mean, and the thing about it is I'm just not smart enough to know what we do short of some we can do general strikes and uprisings and all this stuff, but people ain't gonna give up their phones. People ain't gonna give up
No,
their iPhones.
and they have a plan for the uprisings, which
Hmm,
this administration has shown they're willing to carry out.
sure.
So they have a plan for uprisings, which would be mass casualties, and their hope is that mass casualties would frighten us into complete subservience. So they have no problem with that. And I guess this is the thing. It's like this is the natural consequence, and this is what frustrates me. I talked about some people who were on my Friday Live. It frustrates me about people like Michael Smerconish. Also, Marlon,
No,
why is Michael Smerconish on TV? Do you know, like, what's his background? Maybe is he a finance? Like, who the hell is this person?
he's just a guy who seems very nice. I mean, I don't know how these people get these jobs. I mean, but I don't know of him having any particular expertise, like in finance or he's just a guy who asks questions,
Okay, because
right?
I was trying to
What's
figure
he?
out. Yeah.
What is he? I mean, what's what's gotten him on your radar screen aside from
Okay.
he's just annoying to me.
So what's gotten him on my radar screen was very annoying. Is he pretends to be neutral and not
Mm,
conservative or liberal, but he's clearly very conservative. And he has this thing called the Mingle Project, where he was talking about how come Americans don't talk to each other anymore. We need to, talk to each other across our differences. But and those differences he talks about are class. So he's talked about, white wealthy people don't live around enough middle class or poor people, so they don't know them, and our life is so different, and all that. So that sounds like good ideas, sort of, right? You're like, okay, all right, what are we talking about? And then I was watching CNN, and he had these people on talking about what he's talking about with the Mingle Project. And
Okay.
he had this one guy who is a professor who wrote a book called Bowling Alone, which some people might know about. And basically, what they said together was, let's ignore race, because race is just a confusing factor here. And we just won't talk about race right now because it gets in the way of us having this conversation, and I'm like, wait, what? And so then it was like, we're talking about white working class and connecting them to basically wealthy white people. And I was like, oh, so you're just trying to reconnect the dope. You're just trying to get working class, poor white people to believe, just like in, at the end of Bacon's Rebellion, that somehow they're going to be rich, and if they just are around wealthy white people, they'll feel better and will be less alienated. As opposed to, the problem is we have class alienation. We are alienating each other from work. You know what I mean?
Oh
It
yeah.
was very interesting. Okay, so here I'm gonna play this little section. I found it. See if people. Let's see if I can. Can I share? Yes. Here. Share screen. Okay, we're gonna try something different.
Uh-oh.
Oh Lordy. Choose what to share. Okay, I'm gonna share this. Can you see that?
I do.
Okay, let's see if you all can hear this. Okay.
Kernstein. And Fishtown was one of the few in 2000 when I was coming up with data on this stuff. Fishtown was one of the very few white working class urban neighborhoods left in the country. And I was writing a book and then coming apart that focused on whites. Very simple reason. I learned with the bell curve that whenever race comes into the picture, it brings so many ancillary and distracting issues. I wanted to say to my audience, look, the problems I'm talking about should not be confused with racial problems. These are problems that are affecting America. And the way you know that they're affecting America across racial lines is they're happening with whites as well as with blacks.
Ciao.
Oh
How do
boy.
I
Where
how do I get
where
away
where
from
can
this?
we start?
How do I stop sharing now that I've shared? Oh
Oh,
Lordy.
it's all good.
Oh, there it
I
is. I found it.
wow. Okay. So
Let's sit with
yeah, it does
let's
bring
just
a
sit
whole
with
bunch of shit, doesn't it? I mean, so it's like what he seemed to be saying was when you introduce race into it, then we got to start thinking about all that shit we've done and
well, it's
people
not
and
important, it's ancillary.
it's yeah, well, that was the word. What ancillary?
Yeah.
Like it's just a side problem over here that gets in the way. He said gets in the way.
In a way. It gets confusing, and it affects all Americans because it affects white working Americans. Well, so many things.
Who
First of all, I have always been so insulted with, even Hillary Clinton would talk about this, the white working class. I come from a black working class neighborhood in the Midwest. The Midwest is full of black working class
yeah,
people, factory
yeah.
people who worked in hospitals. They act like we do not
I don't
exist.
know what they think black people are doing. Because when they
Sitting
say
around, I
soccer
guess.
moms, they mean white women,
White, they
right?
keep, they ain't
That
taking
in
their
that,
kids to soccer.
like,
Yeah.
I didn't play soccer, but a lot of black folks play soccer. As a matter of
Hmm.
fact, I guess if you look at it, look at this World Cup.
A lot of
There's
people
some
of color.
black
It's all,
folks playing a whole lot of
but
soccer.
when it comes to working class, they hide the fact that we exist. Once again, it all comes back to class consciousness and trying to keep us separated so that we never have a class consciousness. And he's talking about this Mingle project is a way of getting white working class people around upper class, wealthy white people so they can feel better. That's some Bacon's Rebellion bullshit. That's that whole thing where you're white and you're going to be feeling better. And he goes on to say farther in, it doesn't, it doesn't necessarily work around just crossing racial because we won't deal with racism. These are men who make millions of dollars. Michael Smirkana is just talking about he's being invited all around the country to talk about this Mingle project. What the fuck? And this guy is a vaunted scholar, and these people can't do intersectionality. Cannot.
Ain't talking to no black people.
It's ancillary.
Or hell, nobody that's not white, evidently.
Because if you can get white people to stay aligned with each other across economics, then you never have to worry about them turning around and saying, wait a minute, you're working class like me. We're all screwed up here. We should work together. As long as you can keep them dope sick on race, on LGBTQI, on trans, on anti-disability, as long as you can keep them there, then they never have to worry about being challenged about what they're doing, right? So but it was crazy to me. Like, this project is designed to help people talk to each other, but only white people, because I don't want to talk about race. It's too complicated and it's a mess and it doesn't help. No, it's the reason. And so instead of saying we need a project to help people who are similarly situated economically mingle, because that's what you do need. What we're going to do is have a project to help people who are, the same race mingle. That's what we're going to do. That was on TV.
So Smirkanic, first of all, he's always been a Republican. I
That's
just
what I say.
Look. No, he really was a, I guess what you'd call a moderate Republican, back in the day. And then I guess even before Trump, he says he left the Republican Party, but it's always been pretty clear to me, when I hear people that are so willing to kind of compromise my situation away, I mean, you can't really lay it all on conservatives, because Democrats have done the same.
The Bernie Bros, who on the other hand say it's all about class and not about race, when the only reason class is as entrenched as it is because of race. So their inability to see it on that side. Yeah,
it's depressing.
That man.
What do we do? What do we do about this? I mean, I guess
I'm totally
this is kind of
vampirism. If anybody out there is,
if you know somebody, because I'm just gonna go to sleep for 100 years and just
well, you have to be a vampire to do that. You need.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe I'm down for it. The more I think about it, I'm just kind of like, wait a minute, I could sleep through this shit and let y'all figure it out, and then come back and I still be looking good as new. So.
Oh my God. I don't, it's hard because, when we talk about this, anytime white people get even a little prick of consciousness, the ruling class goes bananas, right? The little prick of consciousness from George Floyd was met with this hammer of backlash, right? Because they really can't, it's so, I went to an art museum exhibit here in Portland. We have a black we have a wing of our art museum named after a black artist, which is unusual, and it is dedicated to black art, which is also unusual here in Portland, Oregon. And there's a picture in there that some young people interpret different pictures and other things. And there's an interpretive picture of the Burnside Bridge. And in Portland, after the murder of George Floyd, there were I don't know, it looked like 100,000 people laying on the Burnside Bridge, which is one of our many bridges here. And that image alone helped fueled the backlash to DEI in universities, because what was said in the right-wing websites and online and ultimately the administration is that because of diversity, white children had learned to hate themselves. And that's why they were willing to lay down on the bridge for George Floyd. And unless something was done to stop them from hating themselves, because they got to hate us, they can hate themselves, that whiteness was going to be lost. And so it was this extreme backlash. And it's not like everybody who laid down on the bridge is some freedom rider, but it was the visual of white people putting their bodies down that sent
for Black people.
Yes,
for somebody Black.
That is a very underreported cause and effect to some of the things that went on. And it's like they just cannot have it. They cannot have white people waking up in any sense, which is why they make fun of the word woke. And, who the hell convinces people that being awake is bad?
Oh, honey, I tell you, I'm trying to find the person because I really want to give them credit for pointing this out. And I heard that, on that clip that you just, that we just played, the guy made a reference to the bell curve, which is I'm just going to read what I just saw online about the bell curve. So it's by Herstein and Murray, and it's widely characterized by critics, which would include the Scientific American and the Southern Poverty Law Center, as racist work that promotes scientific racism and eugenic ideology. And that's what this guy just used as his reference point. So that is incredible to me. Well,
one thing I want to say is when I said the guy was a vaunted scholar, I was being sarcastic. Somebody in the comments like, he's not a vaunted scholar. I'm like, yeah, I know. I was being sarcastic. What I'm saying is that these are the people who have all this nationwide authority and who people are inviting to talk. And Skrmanish does bill himself as kind of in the middle, and he does get a lot of money and a lot of work, and he's going around this country talking about the stupid Mingle Project that is a racist trope about white alignment with whiteness as opposed to class identity and consciousness. That's, I mean, you just want to say it in a simple thing, that he is getting paid to do that, and that is,
it's amazing to me how easy it is for some of these guys, folks like, he gets little, if any, pushback on his persona, if you will, as, a middle of the road guy, just trying to, can't we all just get along? And that clip alone is just, it's tremendously problematic. I mean, I've never heard of that guy, but
he's the author of the bell curve. He is the author.
Oh, wait, he's the author of the bell curve, the guy that was in the clip.
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
so that's what we're getting.
Well, that makes it even worse. I didn't realize he was the author. I thought he was just referencing it.
No. He was saying he learned that and that's what I'm saying that's what makes Smerconish dangerous. He repurposes. He's a reasonable guy, and he has someone.
And so that guy comes in under the umbrella of Smerconish being, a fair and balanced guy.
That's what I'm saying.
And
there
he's
you
nice.
go. There you go.
Oh dear. Okay.
Now you got it.
Wow.
Now you got it. And that is the problem. He's promoting this idea as if he's promoting some neutral way to help people, and he's getting paid to go around the country and do this. And yet one of his experts for this project is somebody who released one of the most racist books in U.S. history around Black intelligence. And when I was looking at it, he didn't have any Black person, but he did have one woman of color. She's Asian American, who was talking about the dangers of pornography, which even when I hear that nowadays, I'm like, what's the angle? Because everything ends up being about control or dominance. It's like, I'm not a big fan of pornography per se. However, frequently when people, there's some shit in the game, as Black people say. There's something else at play, which is usually like women need to be restricted, or people need to, it somehow ends up getting to LGBTQIA folks and restrict. So it's never what it appears on the surface they're talking about, is what I figured out. But that was the only person of color he had in his little mingle project. So it's a white mingle project, which I should email him. You should just call it the white mingle, because that's what you're trying to do, right? Mingle for white people.
Oh man, they should create an app for that.
Yeah, they want white people to be aligned with white identity. And that is what they should say. It is a white identity project to reinforce the fake notion of whiteness, because it is fake, real world consequences, but fake identity, and to reinforce the ideas of whiteness, a la what happened after the Bacon's Rebellion in 1676. And we want to keep that project going. And that is what we're about. Just say it. You know what I mean? Just say that. Because I mean, he pretty much said it, right? He pretty much
kind of did. He kind of did.
He kind of did. He kind of did. Because them black people, you talk about them, everything gets all messed up. Talk about people of color, it's not serious. It's and the eugenic. Oh, so one last thing about this conspiracy theory podcast, they talked about eugenics, and they said, and again, I wish I knew which year this particular episode I was listening to was. They were saying, well, people are alleging this desire to have we have a bunch of eugenicists right now, all of them. Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, Stephen Miller, they're all eugenicists. They all believe in, and Donald Trump is a eugenicist from his heart.
He's constantly talking about people having good genes,
bad genes, yeah.
All kind of crazy talk. I mean, yeah. Well,
yeah. Well,
man, we buzzed through this hour, didn't we?
Yeah, Donald Trump's been a eugenicist from the jump. So anyway, yes, it's been a great hour. We started talking about Black migration,
squeezed food, in a little bit about some shrimp and grits.
But we didn't talk about the name of the podcast, or whatever we're calling this. The stream. Is this streaming? Is this podcasting? What am I doing?
Well, it's kind of a little of both, isn't it? I mean, we start off streaming, and then when we repurpose it, or put out our recording, at least on my end, it populates into a podcast. It's on pretty much everywhere.
Right. So what
so
are we
people can listen? I don't think we figured out the name for the show, but I think what I'm going to do is, if folks will, if you have an idea, put it in the chat. I'm going to take a screenshot of it, and I'm going to create a poll that I'm going to post on Substack.
Yep.
I would like to have 3 or 4 names that are. We got the mountain, or was it the mountaintop?
The mountaintop.
Got that last week, and that kind of took over. But surely, with all these brains, in the audience, I think we ought to at least be able to come up with 2 or 3 different options.
Yeah,
right?
I think we're liking the mountaintop because we heard it first.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it stuck.
It's that recency bias.
Because at first I was like, the mountain. What? I don't even know. But I didn't. I just saw the mountain, and then when you put the top there, I'm like, oh, okay. But I have to be honest. I'm kind of scared about I don't want. The mountaintop is scary for me.
Like, you don't want to go up there, because at the mountaintop you see, but you don't get to go to the promised land.
That's it. And I want to go to the other side. I don't want to get left behind.
Yeah. At the mountaintop you get to see, but you did never get to go. Moses gets up there, MLK gets up there, but they don't get to go to the other side, which is a question right now. I mean, the midterms are going to decide whether we end up in the wilderness, or we all arrive, and one thing I will say, just as we're wrapping up, I do feel heartened. I hear more and more people talking about the fact that people do not want to go back, that if you're going to get elected, you have to talk about a whole new way. And just the fact that people are saying that out loud is really great. So,
I think you're right. And I feel like people are seeing the consequences of some of this foolishness. I mean, just looking at, and it's not the same thing, but just looking at what's going on with the Iraq war, what's going on in, just all these different areas. there's a lot. And I think also when you start seeing white folks getting shot in the middle of the street, if that, so there's that.
Yeah. I mean,
I have one.
I hope people can keep that energy going forward. Yep.
I have one last plug.
All right.
Tomorrow, I have a special guest. But Turney Duff is not a household name, but
Mhm.
I
Oh,
have known him. He
you're going in and out on sound, Marlon. Your sound is going in and out. No, I can't hear Marlon. I don't know if other people can hear him, but his sound, I think, has gone out. Is that correct for other people? Or am I the one whose sound went out? Whose sound went out? Okay, so did Marlon's sound go out or did my sound go out?
I can hear you. I can hear you just
Okay,
fine.
but I couldn't
So
hear you.
huh,
Your
I-
sound was cutting in and out like it did when we first started. Yeah, other people can't hear you either in the chat.
wow.
So your sound is going in and
Okay.
out.
Well, I guess that's as good a place as any to end up, huh? Why? They
I'm
don't.
still
The man
Marlon's
doesn't
still
want us talking about this.
Marlon's still trying to sell me on this StreamYard. I'm not 100% certain, so I'll probably do my live through Substack Live on Friday, but we'll see how it goes. Thank you
Okay.
all. Thank you, Marlon. Thanks for having me.
All
We'll come
righty.
up with something. Thanks,
Okay,
everybody.
folks. Take care.
All right, bye-bye. Bye.